Welcome to Overrated, Underrated, GTA Online Cars Edition. There's gonna be no option for properly rated, so this list is gonna be just all over the place. Without any more wait, let's get into it. So we got a good chunk of cars here. Obviously, it's not gonna be all the cars in the game, just because if we were to do all the cars, this video would be like over half an hour, and we don't want that. I'm gonna mix these up a little bit just because we have the same version of each car next to each other. So let's start with the open 9F. I'm gonna put it in underrated. Same with the closed version, whatever you call this car, overrated. This Buffalo, underrated. This Buffalo looks a lot cooler than this one. I forgot what you call this car. It has like an Italian sounding name. Well, whatever it is, it's going in underrated. Then we have the Comet Retro Custom, underrated. Comet Safari, overrated. Coquette, underrated. I love Corvettes, underrated. LG Retro Custom, I have to put it in underrated. LG RHA, overrated. This electric car, whatever you call it, overrated. This car, overrated. Banshee 900R, since there's no properly rated, underrated. Comet SR, I'm gonna put in underrated. The Fudo, I'm sorry, a lot of you guys are gonna hate me for this, but overrated. Let's see, overrated. Issy Sport, underrated. Jester, underrated. Jester Sport, underrated. Coquette D8, overrated. Overrated. Jugular, underrated. Is that the Jugular? Chameleon, underrated. What in the world is this piece of garbage? Overrated. Armored Kuruma. There's no properly rated, so I'm gonna put it in overrated. Screw it. This is the car that has that UK livery, which is pretty cool. I'm gonna put it in underrated. Massacro, I have to put it in underrated. Beautiful car, super OG. Another type of Coquette, underrated. Another type of Massacro, underrated. 8F Drafter, underrated. This one, overrated. Neon, underrated. Feltzer, super underrated. Love that car, also an OG. The Neo, underrated. Another type of Comet SR, we already have one, underrated. What do you call this car? I forgot. Oh yeah, the Flash GT, underrated. I like that car a lot. This one, overrated. The Bentley looking car, I'll say underrated. The NASCAR, underrated. Itali GTO, I mean, you have to put it underrated. I mean, it's one of the best sports cars in the game for racing. Pariah, I'm actually gonna put overrated. I don't like the Pariah as much as the Itali GTO, even though it's also one of the best sports cars for races. Overrated. The Tesla, underrated. Whatever this one is, overrated. Overrated. Three-wheeler, I'll put underrated. The regular Kuruma, overrated. This car is super strong. I'll still put it in overrated though. And then the Rustin, which looks to be the same type of car, I'm gonna put in underrated. I think the Rustin looks cooler than this one. Mercedes, overrated. Another Mercedes. Schlagen GT, underrated. Another type of Mercedes. Holy crap. These three are like almost identical. The Spectre I actually kind of like, especially the Benny's version. We'll put the Spectres in underrated. The racing version of the Buffalo, whatever you call it, I'll put overrated. I forgot what you call this one, but I'll put it in underrated. Dang, I'm actually forgetting a lot of these names. I'm just recording this at a pretty late time, so bear with me. Mercedes SUV, overrated. The Sugoi is 100% underrated. Love that car. This generic one, overrated. VSTR, we'll say underrated. This one just looks goofy, overrated. And then the Sultan, I'll put in underrated. So let me zoom out a little bit so I can show you guys the whole thing. Here's a quick overview of everything we got so far. I think there's a little bit more in underrated, probably because I don't think most vehicles in the game are overrated. Are most of them overpriced? Yes, but I mean, the cars themselves are good. So let's check for another one now. All right, so we got a supercars only now. So let's move into supercars. 811, underrated. I'm gonna have to put the adder in underrated as well, just because I have respect for it for how OG it is. This one, underrated. Banshee, I think for a supercar, the Banshee's overrated. This one definitely overrated. The Cheetah, underrated. Love that car, also pretty OG. Cyclone, slightly overrated. FMJ, I'll put slightly overrated as well. The Reaper, even though it performs like trash, I'll put it in underrated. Entity XF, underrated. Entity XXR, underrated. Whatever you call this one, overrated. XA21, definitely underrated. Infernus, underrated. Itali GTB, underrated. Nero, underrated. Osiris, underrated. One of the best looking cars in the game. This one, on the other hand, I don't know about that one. RE7B, you know what, we'll put it in underrated. Considering we're focused on supercars, I'll put it in overrated. T20 definitely underrated. What do you call this one? Not the Furia, I forgot what you call this one. The Typin, yeah, the Typin, underrated. Tempesta I'll put in overrated, even though it looks nice. The Turismo R, underrated. We have the Vaca, I'll put it in underrated. You know what, I'll just put one of them. The Wagner, definitely underrated. Great supercar right there. Vision, I mean, realistically it should be properly rated, but I'll put it in underrated. This one overrated. Zentorno underrated. And that is gonna be it for supercars now. Let me know what you guys think. Once again, a bit more on the underrated side than the overrated. I don't think this is all the supercars in the game, but it's a good chunk of them. So for the third and final one, we have a couple of weaponized vehicles. So the Kanjali, once again, something that should be properly rated. I'll put it in underrated. Wow, I really don't know with this one. You know what? Overrated. There you go, guys. Enjoy. Insurgent Pickup, overrated. Hydra, I'll say underrated. Night Shark, underrated. The Laser, overrated, I guess. And then Armored Kuruma we'll put in underrated. So once again, the majority is in underrated. One more in underrated this time. Let me know if you want to see more tier maker videos. I did make some in the past. If you want to go check them out, make sure you click on the video on screen now for it. I hope you all enjoy that video, and peace.